Every now and then a wonderful recipe finds me, and I found this old book in a thrift shop in country New South Wales last year. And in it I found a recipe for Genoa cake, which is a French cake. And what I love about this recipe is that it contains only almond meal, no flour. So I made it and I brought it in line with the 21st century, because back then I don't think they had electric beaters. And it tastes absolutely delicious. The crumb on this cake is wonderful. It stays moist for days and it's really simple to make. So the recipe calls for 150 grams of butter, and we need that melted, and because the recipe doesn't take long, I do that first. So I just pop that in the microwave. And then to the melted butter, add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Give it a little stir and set that aside to cool. So I've got 2 fairly large lemons here. Oh yeah, about 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. Now into a bowl, crack 5 large eggs. I picked up these eggs from the butcher and they're like the best eggs I've ever used in my life. They're beautiful. So together with the almond meal, this cake is really high in protein. Then I add the lemon zest, 2 nice big tablespoons, and 275 grams of caster sugar. The recipe says 325 grams, but the recipe also does not include an icing. So I reduced the sugar by 50 grams to 275 grams, and I found that's the perfect amount when you ice the cake. If you're not going to ice the cake, then stick to the 325 grams in the original recipe, but I'll leave both in the recipe on the website. Now you'll have to beat this until it's tripled in volume. So depending on the speed of your beater, between 3 and 5 minutes. And that was 4.5 minutes. And it's really lovely and thick. And set that aside just for a moment. And then in another bowl, place 500 grams of almond meal. Now almond meal in Australia is just finely ground blanched almonds. So if you can't find almond meal, just get some blanched almonds and whiz them up in a high-speed blender. And to that, add 100 grams of corn flour or cornstarch, and the recipe says you can even use potato starch here. And if you used unsalted butter like me, just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Combine this together and then add this to the egg mixture. Using a folding motion, just fold the almond meal into the egg mixture. And on the website, I'll also leave the directions and instructions for half this amount, because this does make quite a few cakes. And once that's almost combined, then I add the butter mixture. And that's all there is to it. Now, you can bake this in a 10-inch springform pan. However, I really like the look of it in rectangular pans. They slice so elegantly. Half the recipe will make 2 of these. So this whole batch here will make 4 of these, but unfortunately I've only got 2 of these tins. So today I'm going to use this bread tin here, which will give me a lovely rectangular slice, but I feel there's too much mixture for it. So I think I'll get a smaller one plus a larger one. So I've just lined the base of the pan with some buttered paper. I've misplaced my scissors, so I'm just using the folding method. And to ensure it doesn't stick, I'll just put a little bit of flour in the pan, like that. Nothing worse than a cake that sticks to the pan. Now this cake doesn't rise much, but it does a little. So I've 2/3 filled that one. With the back of a spoon that I've just wet, I'll just smooth the surface. And I'm going to pop these in the oven. I think this little one here will take 30 minutes and the bigger one maybe about 40 to 45 minutes. And I might have to put a piece of foil on them as they're cooking if they're browning too quickly, but I'll let you know how I go. And in the meantime, I'm just going to whip up an orange one with oranges instead of lemons, and I'm going to use the finely grated zest of 2 oranges, 5 large eggs, extra large, with the orange zest, 275 grams of caster sugar, and again, using a stand mixer is probably easier, but I've only got a handheld beater, and beat that for a good 4 to 5 minutes. Then I sprinkle over the almond meal, which has got corn flour and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt in it. And for the orange cake, to the cooled butter, add 1 tablespoon of orange juice and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Give it a little stir. And that's the orange one done. I just have to wait for the lemon cake to bake, and then I'll put this orange one in the oven. And these freeze really great. Thank goodness, because it's just Mike and I, and this is a lot of cake. So both cakes have been in the oven for 30 minutes, and I feel like they've probably got a bit longer, so I'm just going to quickly look. Oh, it's nearly there, but there's some mixture coming out. So what I'm going to do is pop it back in the oven, put the timer on for 10 more minutes, and cover it with some aluminium foil, or put a sheet of baking paper over the top so it stops browning. So they've been in for 40 minutes, and I can tell they're done because they spring back when I press them. And funnily enough, they both took the same time, and a skewer should come out completely clean, which it does. Maybe this one got a bit brown around the edges, and it doesn't matter, a little bit of lemon glaze will cover that up. So now what I do is I just wait for it to cool enough so I can handle them and invert them on a wire rack. So these have been cooling enough so I can handle the tin, and I'll just run a knife around the edge in case there's any mixture that was stuck, but it feels really good. And just carefully tip them out, remove the paper. And the same with this one. Now the orange cakes are in the oven, and now what I'm going to do is quickly whip up the 2 glazes to go on top. And I'll make them both at once. That was just 1.5 cups of icing sugar, and for the orange one, fresh orange juice. And don't worry too much, if you make it too thick or too thin, you can always add more icing sugar or more juice. And I've just made that too thin. So I'll add a little bit more icing sugar to that one. And you can put a little bit of orange zest in here, but actually I haven't got any orange zest. I used it all for in the cake. And what I always love to add to an icing like this, it's just a touch, like a teaspoon, a good teaspoon of melted butter, and this just makes it extra glossy and extra delicious. And for the lemon icing, I just use lemon juice. And again, you can put some lemon rind in here, just a little bit of butter, and that will help loosen it up a bit. And that looks good. So whilst the cakes have got a little bit of warmth left into them, I like to ice them. And that way the icing actually sort of melts down the sides. But you don't want the cake too hot when you do this. just a little bit of warmth left. Because I didn't add the full amount of sugar, this lemon icing just balances it out beautifully, and it looks pretty too. And that, because it's warm, will naturally find its way down the sides. But I won't slice it until it's completely cool. Pretty. Okay, I'll come back and show you when the orange ones are out the oven. So these ones have had 35 minutes, so I reduced the time by 5 minutes, and the skewer's coming out nice and clean. And now I'll let them cool down enough so I can tip them out, and then I'll ice them. Looks good. Oops, I spoke too soon. These are so cute, these little ones. I'm going to try and find more of them. And they've got a little bit of heat left, not too much, which is perfect because I'm just going to blob on this orange icing and make a mess of my kitchen counter. And you know, if you've got a clean kitchen counter, which I do, you can just go underneath it later if anything is missing a spot and just put it on the top. Okay, time to slice it and see what it looks like inside. It's the orange one, and that's the lemon one. Have a look at the orange one. Can you see the texture of that? It's just a really lovely crumb. I hope you can. And this one is the lemon one. It's a generous piece. Super cute, these little ones. And that's the orange one. And this is the lemon one. Just delicious. We have so much cake, I wish I could give you a slice. Sorry about the long video, I hope it wasn't too boring, but this cake, I know personally, I'll be making it again and again. It's a keeper. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.